was like, okay, nothing is easy. I know, of course, these are things I need to do, but so then if I'm going to suffer, let me suffer doing something bigger. Of course, as a young person, sometimes, you're ambitious, but also at the same time, you're naive. You don't know what it takes.
Yeah.
But I felt like still to be able to do it at the highest level, I felt like I needed to work into Hollywood. What I felt, I was like, I don't care how I get there. I knew I cannot fail myself. And one thing that I do believe, if you're doing what you love, your passion, you cannot make an excuse of just being a mediocre. Come on. I still felt like, I wasn't ready to start a company. Even later on, getting a survival job.
Yeah.
Man, talk about coming into the real world. Yeah, I wasn't needed.
Tell me about what you're building right now.
Next year, we are putting out our first feature-length animated film, the major film from Sub-Saharan Africa, from the production value point of view in the context of Africa. That has not been really done much, for bigger studios.
Yeah.
Sometimes for them, they find it too good to be true. For those who get it.
Is entrepreneurship for everyone?
Repeat that again.
Moved. Thanks a lot for making it, man.
Thank you.
Cool, man. I like to start by understanding the man behind the innovation or the man behind the entrepreneurial endeavor. So how about you take me a couple of years back, how did you find this passion? But most importantly, actually, how was Moved as a kid?
Wow, okay. Where do I start? But let me get to it. So, Moved. I'd say, if I go back into my life, of course, I was born in a neighboring country, Uganda, at a very early age. We moved to Rwanda post-genocide. We settled into the Eastern Province, place called Rwagitima. Some people might know. Yeah, I would say much of my life, what has shaped me, it has been in Rwagitima. So, that's where I did, most of course, my primary school. From there, I went to high school in a place not far from there, maybe 15 kilometers, Chiziguro. From Chiziguro, then went to Lycée de Kigali. Lycée de Kigali was big time exposure, I would say, to the big leagues, Yeah, so interesting enough, my first time to be, in Kigali, it was straight to Lycée de Kigali. I've never been to Kigali before.
Yeah.
So I came joining high school, Lycée de Kigali, and then from Lycée de Kigali, National University of Rwanda. And then after that, settled in the city, like most people.
Yeah.
So, we got a job and then, But stepping back, from my childhood, my upbringing, my life was pretty much all set in Rwagitima, I would say, and that has defined me in the most way, into the person that I am today. Yeah.
And so, what did you want to become when you were a kid?
Well, speaking in terms of as a kid, what you want to become, you can only dream or think about things you can relate to, things you've seen. So what I'm doing now, I'd be lying if I say, that's what I had in mind.
Yeah.
But because back then when I was young, I would say maybe my inspiration was my, bigger sister. I knew she wanted to be a doctor so much. And, I unfortunately, she didn't get to do that. She got into computer science, but that kept, paining her. Like, I really wanted to be a doctor. So it's like from SC1, like, I aspired to be a doctor from S1 all the way to S6. Yeah. So, and I would say you would see, for most people, they get to figure out, maybe, what they want to do later. But I would say I was very intentional and specific from S1, wanting to be a doctor. So 2 subjects in class, chemistry and biology. Those were like, my go-to places. I read all the textbooks that were available. It's funny right now, I don't read hard copies, books, but back then, this is before access to a computer or internet. I'll read textbooks, of chemistry and biology. I'll try to get, national paper exams, cross-reference from, these back pages where, what is it called? Where they have references of words and page numbers, and then you go in the book, you learn about the subject. And I would skim through, those big books. So I'd say I had invested myself, even like, by the time I finished O level, I had so much content in terms of, biology and chemistry. And also like, the way I would say I'm set up, I could focus on certain things, and block out the rest regardless. Yeah. So was I like, a good student? Like, back then, if you look in school now, sometimes like you're sort of incentivized maybe to be, you could be mediocre at, 50-50 on many things.
Yeah.
You're in a better place. But I would say back then for me, I wasn't like that. I'll go 100% on those 2 things. And, I would bet like, whoever was in my class, at least, those 2 subjects, I'll be top, among the top people in those 2 subjects. And they will come me through, through school. But yeah, in cases where, you're sort of incentivized to get 50-50, it'll be a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what happened to that dream?
Well, I would say that was the biggest setback in life. I would say maybe the biggest failure as far as I could remember. Of course, maybe I've had other small ones, but, finishing S6 and going to, National University of Rwanda, wanting to be a doctor, wanting to do medicine, nothing else that I ever wanted, like, for the last 6 years. And then they told me, you cannot have it. I didn't get good grades because, as I had said, I would only focus on these 2 subjects, and the rest I would be so bad. I mean, so bad. All I could get maybe is enough points to get me to the uni that I wanted, but still that doesn't put you in the top performers, back then where, there was only 1 medical school in the country, and you had to be, let's say top 50 in the country, which I was definitely not.
Yeah.
So seeing that like as a no goes on all things, seeing that that's not going to be possible, I remember, man, like, it's hard to define. I mean, for people with passion, who have invested themselves in certain things, I think they can relate, and also at a young age, like, you don't have much experience about life. You don't know, like, you can lose and, maybe regain things later, but it felt like, end of life. Yeah. So, but surprisingly, I was at the registrar's office, of course it was so much that went on, but after I told them, so how about if I drop this government scholarship and be able to do medicine as a private student? I didn't have resources to do that, but, I had convinced my mom and my sister, if we're going to sell the last piece of anything we have, please support me on this, at least, I should be able to get into medicine first year, and then if you do good, you could get back onto government scholarship, second year. Imagine, it was too risky. I convinced them for that. They're like, yeah, go for it. But then when I spoke to the registrar's office that, hey, I asked them, forget about your scholarship. I'm here as a private student, put me on, I want to do medicine. They're like, no, not this year. They say, like, if you still want to do that, then you have your money. You still have to wait next. I was like, okay, that was the last nail in the coffin. I was like, okay, this is done. I need to think, second option. What came up, this was after, I agonized about this for a whole year to internalize these chances that I might not get this. So after they told me, even if I was private, this is not going to happen, I was like, okay. So now this is what it looks like. I failed in life. I cannot have what I wanted to be. So I was like, okay, if this is as bad, it's already as bad as it looks. So if I'm going to mess up things, I'm done, I'm screwed. My next steps, I can be screwed more. I was like, at least let me look for something I would enjoy doing, Remember, as I said, being a doctor, more or less was, I wanted to carry on something my sister wanted to do, but didn't achieve. So at this time I was left, to think, I would say, independently. After that being cut out, I started thinking, what can I enjoy do? Like, let's forget about this is all gone. And then I started thinking, computer science. So, and for me, thinking computer science, specifically what I was thinking, it was animation and computer graphics. Remember, so when I joined Lycée de Kigali, that was my first exposure to things, having regular TV, watching, MTV. I used to love, me even now, I watch music videos a lot, TV commercials, films, and all this visual stuff. It always left me fascinated thinking. But when it comes to animation, I remember seeing some ads of Shrek. I think it had came up like in early 2000, and I would see ads of Shrek as 3D characters on Canal Plus, which used to be some of the channels we were watching at Lycée de Kigali. So watching Shrek, I was always fascinated. How are these things, made? And I remember I was like, either way, these have to be coming from a computer because they look like, actual creatures that the camera has filmed. It has to be made. And if it's made, from a computer. And, whichever way these things do come to life, I believe, computers have something to do with it. So I was like, a go-to place. I'm going to learn computer. It fascinated me. It felt like something I could figure out how to do. Because as a kid, I used to make toys, my childhood friend will tell you, you always had cool toys like these cars we make in wires, you make little installations, connect batteries, put on lights. So anything of creating, it came natural to me. I really loved it. But again, back then there were no career in in such things, you know, you didn't know that it existed. And also something I probably mentioned before, my mom, you know, back then I used to know how to draw, like, you know, free hand drawing, like, you know, most artists do. And, but then my mom, someone told her that, you know, kids like, you know, who like drawing, they are typically not smart in school. And then, you know, it was a bit of discouragement, and, you know, and then I had to throw that away to show that I can draw. Or yeah, the only chance of drawing I would get was, you know, if you were in the biology class, and there's a diagram of those insects we used to draw. Yeah, I would be really creative with that. Yeah, which, you know, I'll overdo the drawing. Yeah, all my classmates say, okay, would you draw this for me? Yeah. And so you know, the way then, you know, I got into, you know, computer science after seeing like, you know, oh, this is not going to be viable with medicine. I remembered like, you know, I saw, you know, I love this stuff, you know, I love creating, being crafty, and computer was always something that fascinated me. Didn't have access on the computer, you know, remember, first seeing a computer, man, it's interesting. I would say, yeah, I think, you know, maybe at Chiziguro, our headmaster had one in his office. But then being able, you know, to touch on the computer, that happened when I joined high school. And I remember we had a lab, you know, for the whole school that had 3 or 4 computers. They were functional for the entire school of, you know, 1,500 students. And each class maybe would get a slot of, let's say, I don't know, 30 minutes. And within these 30 minutes, if you're lucky, you know, you could get 5 minutes, you know, in a week. Yeah. So, you know, not every student really wanted to go fight, you know, to go in the lab, but there were some few students who go there. And for me, and I remember we had one friend of ours, classmate, you know, he was the only person, okay, maybe among, you know, the 2 or 3 who knew how to use a computer. He was from Kigali, you know, we would go as, you know, most of, you know, his friends, you know, he would sit on the computer, and then, you know, he's the one who created our first emails. And yeah, so whenever you're entitled, like your turn is up to use a computer, because it was so congested, you wouldn't want to be in the line, you know, fighting, you know, to use a computer, because it was also embarrassing after you're given a mouse and then, you know, you don't know what to do next. Yeah. So this guy, you know, his name is Steven, you know, he would hold, you know, the mouse when it's your turn and be like, here, you tell him what you want to do. But sometimes you want to hold the mouse so that you click, you know, for yourself. And then, you know, why he did, sometimes, you know, he want to direct you when he's holding the mouse, and, you know, we'll be in that fight. So I remember also one of my friends was fighting for the mouse with another friend who was helping him. When we got back into class, I remember them arguing, man, you know, komfata kuombeni, you know, of the phone. We didn't even know what the mouse was called. But I would say those are experiences that I had with a computer, but it always felt like, you know, it had more, and it was something that, you know, I needed to figure out, you know. Yeah, so at the university then, you know, when I couldn't get into medicine, I was like, yeah, there's this fascinating thing I could do. It also, I think it could make many things, you know, create, like, you know, animations, create many things.
Yeah.
So that's how I was like, okay, I need to get into computer science. It was also not easy for someone who has that biochemistry
background
to be allowed to do computer science. That was like an unfair situation, I think, in the academics then. It pissed me a lot.
Yeah.
I remember I was trying to get help to go into computer science. I remember, and then one individual from registrar's office, told me, of course, as someone who has done biochemistry, you cannot be allowed to do computer science or civil engineering. But yet, people who have done math physics in high school were allowed to be doctors, to do pharmacy, to do medicine, which actually squeezed out sports we could get. They could cross over, but we couldn't cross over. And then I remember I asked this person, like, how is that fair? Like, you allow someone who has done math and physics to come be a doctor, but you never allow me to go mess with a computer? Try, help me understand that. This guy told me, Kosha. He told me, he was like, do you think like, your personal issue is going to change, the university's, Senate decision? Talk about learning, how the world works. That was, it was cold. Someone told me around this, like, kibazo cyawe bwite ntabwo ari ikibazo cya kaminuza rusange. I was like, okay. Yeah, so I didn't give up. With some help, I was able to get into computer science. I remember that was the biggest thing, because of the fight I had to go through for me to be allowed, as someone from biochemistry background, to do computer science. It was like, I would say, the biggest win of my life. When that happened, I remember I was like, okay, it's done now. Now it's between me and God. Now that I'm here, I'm going to have access on this computer. There's so much I could do. And I remember I knew, of course, this is going to make money ultimately. Of course, I didn't know of anyone in the country that has done it. But, like, if this works anywhere, here also it should be. So I'd say when I joined computer science, that's day one of university. That's when I would say maybe my entrepreneur journey, wanting to do something, I would say, when that started. So went into that. And then...
what was your first job?
Out of school. So, so if I'll say so, getting into computer science, I thought, okay, I would go into this, and then this is where they teach how to make all this stuff.
Yeah.
But guess what?
Yeah.
Like, 1 or 2 weeks in, I was learning, they're teaching us like, computer hardware components. It's like, when is this thing's going to be cool and exciting? And then immediately I saw, this school is going to be for a paper. I need to figure out, how to do things that are interesting. So day one, I started self-teaching myself. I remember first day that I got access on a computer that was connected on the internet. I stayed in, all night, 24. It was for the first time I went, I didn't sleep in my life working. So I was given access by someone when I was in my first year, and then I was given access to computer, lab with a friend that was my roommate, but was in computer science 2 years ahead of me. They had a lab at the uni. And then we stayed in there. I remember that was the first time, I was using Google, like, how to make cartoons. and then there'll come all these, search results. Man, like I had no idea that a computer needs an additional software to perform certain things. I thought by default, all computers can do the same things. And then I remember seeing all these different software names, coming up in some 3D mesh things. And I remember some of the things I saw then. I saw Yoda character, like in which was gray. And I saw, oh, wow. So this is what it looks like. And it showed up. And I remember there are also some names, like I would remember Lightwave, which was like, 3D software, even still now being used, but not probably as popular maybe as it was. It was Lightwave, Maya. And Maya, I knew Maya as some mountain somewhere. I was like, okay, Maya, all these things make sense to me, but, skimming through these Google results, I said, okay, yeah, some things are there, this could be figured out. And then I put that aside. And of course, what I had in mind was like, also, how do people get, transported from this place to another place, from, a photo point of view. You see, you'd see someone having, that
tech background.
Yeah. It was high tech for me then. And just, simple Photoshop, And I remember that night I saw, it was for the first time I really had a computer to press wherever I wanted. It was for the first time I pressed on the start button that was in the corner. Things come up, and then I'll go, enter each thing, and then I'll see some things were settings. Then I go on the desktop, I'll open folders all the way down, and then come back. And for me, I was like, I figured out a computer, to enter a folder all the way down to the roots and then coming back. Yeah. So that experience for that day, and then later on, I got few access, on the computer. And then I remember first thing I started learning was, of course, how to edit the background, in Photoshop. So, got access on like we had a lab that was running a different operating system called Sun. It was Sun Microsystem thing. Yeah, so there was a software installed on that works like Photoshop called GIMP. I remember that's what I used. Even now, today I have, first thing I did, which was clipping out myself and then adding Asen, in the background. My friends make fun of me. They bring that photo up. Yeah. So I had to put like, Aseno TV backgrounds, Yeah. It was a huge, now, Aseno fan. So I'd have Aseno TV background. Yeah. So that's one thing I did. I was like, okay. Yeah. But that was, in the uni. So my first job, I would say, something that would bring money. I remember, so after being able to mess around with my photos, and at the same time, because being a computer science, learning, basic, HTML, CSS, to be able to build basic page, that advanced quick, within my first year, second year. And so when I was in my second year, my sister bought me a laptop. This was, her first salary, brand new MacBook Pro, unibody, aluminum enclosure. Man, like, of course, we are so close, and, use her money as mine, At the uni, I didn't have much, but, I felt like, this was essential, getting proper computer that I like. Yeah. So I would say ever since then, and this computer had just, come up, she gave me the money. I wired the money through Western Union to my classmate who was doing her studies in the US when she came.
Before any fintech, Western Union.
Yeah.
Still leaving, right?
Yeah. Before fintech, that's right. Yeah. I was the only fintech in the wire money. I don't know if back transfers exist. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Western Union was a thing. So I remember when, pick up, the laptop at the airport. Wow. So I would say then the new me was born.
Yeah.
From that moment from my second year all the way to fourth year, I don't think I ever been apart from my laptop. Apart from, let's say, beyond 1 meter. I had it everywhere. Going into the auditorium to watch games, at lunch, at night, it was strapped, on my pillow. Also I was concerned, in my custody. Yeah. Because
not a lot of people had a Mac back in
no,
the day. This was in what, 2001?
9.
9. That's nobody had a MacBook then.
I would say no. Yeah, I was.
It was one of those big ones, like really thick.
Yeah, not too thick. It was. I would say the current Macs.
Yeah.
The way they look with the aluminum unibody enclosure.
Yeah.
It was that first version. But yeah, when you look at it now, it's thick. Back then it was extremely thin.
Compared to the big TV in the lab.
It felt like it could break. But when you look back, also that shows you how technology has advanced. Yeah. So I don't think no one definitely had it at the uni. Whoever would see even some people call me the Apple boy. Yeah. So, and even later for anyone who had issue with their Mac, they had to come to me to help them because I had to figure out to troubleshoot.
Yeah.
And guess what? When I got it, I did mess it up big time. I remember. So I went into on the desktop there was an icon of a hard drive. Right click and I saw somewhere there was like privileges of users. There was user, everyone, whatever group. And then I was like, everyone. I started removing, and guess what? Like, I removed permissions even for the current user that I was in to be able to use this laptop.
Yeah.
Those were extremely painful days, I remember. And then because a friend who had, of course, I didn't have CDs. They were left, in the US. She later shipped them, but at that time, I did mess up that laptop and it was useless.
Yeah.
The only way I could use it, and then I was trying to see if I could use a different operating system. I saw Linux, OS, Ubuntu, Live CD. I would put in, and you couldn't write anything on the disk.
Yeah.
So I would use Live CD, but only to browse internet. I couldn't install much of the stuff because if you shut down this Live CD, it was a whole nother thing. So yeah, so I remember those days. It took me a month.
Yeah.
Having this laptop, that I loved, but practically that I couldn't use for anything.
Yeah.
But then I remember there was someone from the uni who had, a trip, into the US, into some exchange program. For some reason, he collected CDs. He was, I think, with someone in the US who had bought the same model that I had.
Yeah.
And then he brought back CDs. It was back then when people would collect CDs as a way of storage, of backing up softwares.
Yeah.
Right now people, of course, you use hard drives, but people have many CDs. This is operating system. This is different software I'm using for this.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was usable to him for anything, but surprisingly, when I checked on it, it was the exact model. And also back then, Apple was shipping, specific software for specific model.
Yeah.
But right now it's one OS that works across all
of them,
laptops. So I used that and, reformatted, my computer, and then boom, had a new computer, and then, reinstalled the software, and then took it from there. So this computer, I installed, the different software, that I needed to learn. And then from that, after people saw classmates, I could have fun with my photos, do this, do that. And then I remember maybe first actual money. It was someone who came to me maybe to actually edit. It was like, I don't know, a church event or something. So he came to me, he paid me 500 francs. That's how much? Is it?
Less than $1.
Yeah, close, $0.50.
Yeah.
Is that 50 cents?
Something like that.
Yeah. So, and then I used, when I remember, so being paid, for something I've done on the computer, something I enjoy doing, it felt like a robbery. For the first time, I felt, it's like, no way. So it's giving me how many, these cents for such a thing. And then from that, I remember, I started also making some, postcards, for some of my friends, where, sending this to their girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember getting a photo, editing, and at this time, even this is before we talk about Gaze Show, but Gaze Show at this time, I had a logo. Also, like after I figured out how to use, Photoshop, Illustrator, I made a logo of the current company, Gaze Show. But this was maybe years before.
Yeah.
So I would stick it on this because it started off as a personal brand, because I would see, people having these things, maybe, online. I would see, MTV logo, or BET, or these different channels that were on MTV having this little symbol. And it felt like, I should have one. So, yeah, so at that time, as much just, the company was not created yet, I had this and I put it on.
Yeah. What does it mean, Gaze? Like, where did it come from? And why is it Gaze Show? Because people would think it's a TV show.
I know. That's a big, it's amazing. Yeah, that's what people think. Some people be like, how is your show? But again, I think, as I said, like most of the inspiration came from, TV music channels. Like I remember we used to watch, of course, said like, MTV, Trace. Before this Trace became Trace, it was another channel called MCM. I remember one day we woke up, and then we saw it was rebranded from MCM to Trace, and it was sometimes like Trace by MCM, and then later I think it's this Trace that we see now. But so seeing those little things and also watching different music shows and film visual effects, that fascinated me. It felt like having that little something. I didn't know, it just felt I needed that. So Gaze, you would ask me, Gaze Show, where did all this come from? To begin with, Gaze is also a chain of events that led to Gaze. But when I was in the uni, Gaze was my nickname. But it also has a long story of a friend of mine and actually someone I've went, in high school. we went primary school, high school, and later you meet in the same class always. So he was making fun of me. He gave me a name, Rodriguez, but he would use it like in the dissing manner, in the I Rodriguez, and also call him names.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I cannot fight him. Let me embrace the name. So from Rodriguez, some other classmates started calling me Rodrigue, and then later became Rodriguez. So after, now you see, so then after high school, in my VAC, I had a job. Back then we used to finish school and then you do a side sort of, you do a job in your this break or before you go to the uni. So at the school where we were teaching, I was doing a teaching job. I was a teacher. So someone I was teaching with, this was the first time I bought a cell phone. I had a SIM card, we were exchanging numbers. Later I found out he knew I was called Rodriguez as a nickname, and then he saved my number as Guess. I remember checking his phone, so Guess, they make sense to me. I was like, so this is the little extension on Rodriguez. I was like, oh, this looks cool. So then we're using, of course, social media. There was High Five.
Yeah.
The Facebook had not been out here yet.
Yeah.
But, I used Guess as, my profile name on this social media. And then that being a cool name that I liked, and then you would ask me where did the show come from. So as I said, being much inspired from, music I was watching, specifically hip hop. I was, of course, a huge, Eminem fan with definitely other rappers. Eminem show.
Yes, interesting, man.
So he was that person. Of course, I would say later when I was at the uni, I knew I had to create a company. But then I felt like, this guest show, it will still be small personal thing. I'll think of a professional name and then create a company. But then, like any other thing, the way you plan things, that's not how they work out. Really.
Of course.
I felt like, after getting grip on a computer, software, and I'm progressing through my computer science degree, which I was for sure doing as a formality. For me, if back then dropping out was a thing, for sure, I think I would have done because I spent so much time on these side things that I was not incentivized for. At least getting grades in school. But so in doing that, I knew like after school, I'm going to create a company. But my journey was planned. I'm going to go out of school, finish after graduating. I felt like, I'll have like, a good portfolio. And I felt I will go to Hollywood work for this, animation studio. So definitely, through my university days, I was following companies a lot. Companies like, for sure, DreamWorks was, makers of Shrek. I'm watching, different things. But of course, throughout this time, I'm seeing how much work goes into making these films. Of course, as a young person, sometimes, you're ambitious, but also at the same time, you're naive. You don't know what it takes. And you think, if I can learn how to make this Shrek character, make it work, do stuff. What is it about? An hour and a half. And then, for some naive reasons, you think, if you become good, at this craft, you feel like, I can make a film. So, but again, as naive, as it is, I would say those are things that will later, set you on the journey trying to figure out. But I felt like still to be able to do it at the highest level, I felt like I needed to work into Hollywood. That was like, by all means, if I finish uni, I need to figure out, how to go to the US, work for DreamWorks. I was like, I was dying, to be close, to this company. I was, what I felt, I was like, I don't care how I get there. If I'm close to this company, I knew I cannot fail myself. I knew I would work my way up. Yeah. And one thing that I do believe, if I'm given a task of something that I also enjoy doing, I don't think, for me, there's no point of being second or even in the mediocre group. Yeah. So this is a firm belief that I have. If you're doing what you love, your passion, you cannot make an excuse of just being a mediocre. Come on. The world is full of many things. If you're going to pick up something you're going to do, be great at that thing. If you can be great, then leave it. Try something else. I believe we are built to be great at some things. So I felt this is something I could be great at technically. So I was like, whichever room I'm going to be given, I'm going to work my way up to the top, regardless of what. Of course, animation is very wide. It has many departments. But I was like, pick one line. I have to be among the best of the best if I'm given a chance to be close to any of these big companies. So, but of course, being from, Africa, with the US, everything you aspire to be is there. It's unreachable. So, so I
registered a company.
So, so before I registered a company, so I
were still making money as, helping people with their sending postcards to their girlfriends, editing pictures of people with their favorite football team, making some money, right? And then you're like, I need to take this seriously.
Okay, well, yeah. But, what's making money? Some money, I would say. But how much is that?
50 cents.
50 cents. Yeah, but... as much as, that's what I was doing and knowing like this could be big later, but I still felt like, I wasn't ready to start a company. I felt like, I needed to be in a bigger institution that was doing what I ultimately want to do, to learn within the company. And then, and when we were finishing, I was doing my dissertation. Remember, I'm in computer science. I had to find a project that matches, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And most people then, the careers that were there was to do networking, doing, like cabling and all that stuff. And for me, clearly, this was something that I didn't want to do, And, but looking around, I saw a company. So a company in Rwanda was called the Gasabo 3D. I was like, no way. There's a company in Rwanda that is doing what I need, what I want to do. By all means, through friends, good friend of mine, of course, knew someone who knew some, got internship there. And of course, so when I got there, I found like they're using, 3D software, but different from what I wanted to do. So there it was, mechanical engineering. They're using, SolidWorks software to make, mechanical stuff or architectural stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, I was looking more for things in the entertainment industry, like films or TV commercials. Yeah. But of course, when I went there, I started pushing, introducing that into the company. I became close, of course, with my employer there during my internship. Said, yeah, actually, after uni, you can come here.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, the company, saw like they could build something into the entertainment side, maybe not necessarily entertainment, but at least was something within, 3D visualization of educational content. So it was like, yeah, my boss told me, you could come and then we build this department. So talk about, business and the reality of things. This was a year before I finished. I went to finish my degree. When I came back, this project was no longer there. So, and then my boss, of course, my former boss during my internship, I had to press him. I'd be like, yeah, now I'm here. Can we do all that stuff? And remember, because of this opportunity, I was like, yes, I can come and do this for you, but my ultimate goal, I want to work for, into Hollywood and then return. It was like, yeah, through this company, you're going to be able, we can figure out how that could be done. See? So any hustle I could have done on my own to figure out how to get to Hollywood. So I left this fate to this company.
Yeah.
And then, which later came, this department was no longer needed. Even later on, getting a survival job.
Yeah.
Man, talk about coming into the real world. So earlier, you're all this wanted person, like, come, winning. Yeah, but there are, beyond your career, there are other circumstances that drive, that drives decisions. Yeah. So, all my plans were like, I work, for this company, and then this translates in me being placed in a studio outside for capacity building and back and forth, and I'm going to do this risk-free through another institution. I wasn't needed. So, but then of course, as a young person trying to get into getting something to do, at least I had something of, I was persistent, so I remember became so aggressive, to my employer, someone, who had promised me a job, of course, was like, yeah, now, okay, how things are gone, but at least take me in the company, and then, I could be doing, company promotional material, and then, but then at that time, they were not looking into expansion of any technical expertise. What they lacked was sales and marketing. And trust me, believe me, like any other geek from a technical background, those are the last things you want to do. And that's exactly what they wanted. And then me being persistent to him, looking for a job, and I remember, I even wrote a paper, like, a paper, and when I printed it, I was like, I can be good at this, I can be good at this. Even today, I have that paper. I showed it to him, I was like, okay, these are things. And then, of course, he looked at them. Sometimes, of course, there were like some naive statement being like, I can be great at this. And then he told me, he put me aside. He was like, no, you don't say this, right? He was like, I think I came off as cocky in some of those statements. Yeah, but, you need to go through all that, you learn, and then, you're smart. You're like, actually, you ain't shit, Yeah, so, and then push myself. So the more I pushed, because, I was given a promise before, and I said, like, I can come in and do this technical stuff. I said, no, actually, we do need sales and marketing. And the more I pushed, he felt like actually I can do sales. So the more I tried to convince, like, I need this, and this salary that I need. Of course, the salary was, far from, what I felt like, I'm worth. Yeah. It was very humbling, But then I was like, after fighting for long, for salary increment before I even started this, I remember I was home, and of course, after I graduated, at this time, I'm staying with my sister, elder sister. She was getting married, like in 2 months. I have my young sister I'm staying with. I was like, oh, come on, like, now the real world, keeps, unveiling itself to me. So I need to stand on my own. Remember, our mom is in Rwagitima, and I need to make a living here. I was like, I need something. Something. Yes, I have all these whatever big dreams to do this, to do that, but the reality, I'm cornered. After my sister's married, who am I going to stay with? So, and of course, when we were living together, I had promised miracles, like, I should be able to do this. And, I would say, of course, that's why, she was a big believer, fast believer, even, to now. She might not maybe even necessarily understand to the depth of what I do, but huge, the biggest support, of course, I have ever got and anyone could ask for. But then, I'm stuck here, all these things I was saying to her, the reality is kicking in. I remember before I could get into fully Gasabo now as an employee to be paid a salary, I went through some extremely, extremely humbling times, right? Like sometimes when you can be good at something, or when you're good at something, I don't know if it's to have, this is so common with artists, you can build an ego, you feel like, I'm good at this. But I went through humbling experiences. I would say to an extent, it was a bit traumatic. When you think like, I'm so good at something, and you try to convince at least someone to give you a chance to get in, because like all I was struggling with, I was like, just let me in, and then I prove that I can be a whole lot more. But then, even when you think all you're asking is to go in and prove yourself, that chance is not even guaranteed, because also back then, you have no experience. You cannot think from the context of an employer, because there's many kids coming up, with all these hype, we saying like, we can be this, we can do this for you, but ultimately what they want, is some money for mandazi, but after, they are full of mandazi. There's nothing more they are going to care about. But I feel like I have far bigger drive than whatever drive any company would offer me a chance had. I went through a lot, even trying to befriend some people who were doing some basic graphic design jobs in different companies, and to be humiliated. Hey, I don't know. I remember there's someone who was working at a small company, like right now it's not existent anymore. But I was like, okay, I feel like I have so much to provide, to offer, but how comes I'm not being given a chance? So, and I remember I was like, okay, let me befriend this person. He's in a company, he's somewhere doing some things that I feel like, that could be my first step, and then, grow bigger. But, let me befriend him, know what he knows, or, guidance or mentorship in a sense. So he gave me several appointments and counseling them. And then, of course, as a last nail in the coffin, he gave me an appointment. We were supposed to meet at Gisemente. He gave me an evening appointment at a particular time. I waited, and then I called him, and I wanted to go hang out with him. And then, and I wasn't being too pushy in any way. I was very polite, when someone had promised you something that you needed, and you need it so bad. And then I sent him a text, and then I think he replied he'll be there in a short time. And then I think it was 2 hours, 3 hours. I called, sort of ask, are you still coming? And it was already in the night. And the guy spoke back to me very rude. I was like, yo, I'm not your friend. And man, immediately it was like a slap. And then, he hung up. I deleted his number. And I even remember where the office of this company was. He gave me only traumatic thoughts or feelings whenever I go past this place. I would say to recover from that, it took me maybe 5 years within the company after I started a company. So then I was like, so that's one of an example, but I went through many of those.
Yeah.
And then, and all these things, of course, I was going through. These things shaped me later on. Let's say for now, I know, of course, my time is limited in some manner, but I'll never, ever overlook, like a young person, who's respectful and say, I want to meet and talk. Yeah, it could be a Zoom call, it could be in person, but I at least offer that to listen, right? To listen, have exchanges, because of this thing, also this has helped me to, within my journey of the company, to get some talent, because I know there's always, some young people who are passionate, who are driven, but because, not everyone gets it, But let's say in a pool of 10, 20, there's always going to be that special one. It doesn't mean, it's only you who had so much to offer, but you are not. I knew, how I was. There's always going to be those people.
Yeah.
So this is why, I'm always listening. But then, of course, that brings more. Sometimes, there's young people, of course, who abuse this time. Then they come and they tell you all sorts of bullshit,
Yeah.
There's, So, I cannot go into that, but there are those you meet, and you're like, this is gold. Yeah. I would say also, in my entrepreneurial journey, supporting those special people who haven't been given a chance, that I can really, be like, I can support that. I can support that.
So tell me about what you're building right now.
Okay. Let me rush through my professional experience. After those traumatic experiences, later I was employed in Gasabo 3D as my title for sales and marketing. Exactly what I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So, but I remember I convinced my boss. I was like, okay, but I want to be a designer. So can I be sales marketing designer? Okay, he was a cool guy. He's like, go ahead, you can slap that on, create a business card. Of course, these I still have, it was I don't know, marketing designer. I don't even know if that's even an actual thing, but I wanted to slide in, I'm a technical person. After getting in, I started creating company promotional materials, getting all these 3D objects that are mechanical, creating flyers, brochures, presentation, some motion design. And so did that for 3 months. And then I was like, it was an entry job, but pay for my rent and take care of my young sister.
Yeah.
And a few other things. Of course, my mom as well.
Yeah.
In Gwajitima. So yeah, it was okay. So done that. And then I was like, yeah, also this company allows me to have free time. So all these things, I feel like I wanted to maybe I'll figure it out, create this, in my personal time. But then a friend of mine who was working from somewhere else told me, oh, you moved, come, there's this company. They are looking for a graphic designer. But because of this traumatic experience I went through, I didn't want to deal with any other company. I was like, I've had enough. This job can pay me enough to pay my expenses. I don't need to deal with that again. So, but he kept pressing. It's like, I promised them I know someone, it's here, it's, come see it. So I remember I was just on the road walking, he called me again. He was like, come meet these people. They work here at Police Denny building, it was like, 2 Danish guys. So, really out of helping my friend not to look like someone who promises, and
never delivers.
Yeah. I went there. So I went there, I had my MacBook Pro, that I was, I opened. So the guy I met, his name, he's called Dennis Tipdal, the founder of Waka Fitness.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I met this guy, so smiling. He's like, yeah. He's like, okay, let me switch that. And then I pulled out the laptop. He was like, oh, so you use a Mac? Huh? It's the first time. So he was also a Mac guy. And then I pulled up, my laptop. I showed him some stuff. Genuinely, he was impressed on little experimental stuff that I had on my laptop. So he gave me the impression I would have hoped for from any other employer. I was like, but because again, I was hard for long, my ego was so bruised, and I was like, what? No, okay, well, like it, good. What do you want me to do? So when we sat there and he showed me things they needed to do, he brought a flash disk plugged on my laptop. And guess what? I look on the on the flash disk. The flash disk name was named Green Zebra. I was like this name rings a bell. Remember, in these traumatic experiences that I went through, I had seen a job online. They were looking for a graphic designer. The company was called Green Zebra. And I applied.
You never got it.
They sent me, a rejection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that of course, that still exists in my Gmail. It's like, and I remember the job was written, the offer and everything. At first I was like, maybe I feel like, this small offer.
Yeah.
I want more. And you almost wanted to write all that. Yeah. I was like, how am I going to ask for a bigger offer before even being given a job? Then I wrote, I was like, if I'm taken, I'll ask for more.
Yeah.
But guess what? Rejection. I remember that email. It hurt me so bad. I opened this email when I had visited my uncle who lives in Chibonga. I remember on my small little Nokia phone that had a browser. So, and now this guy plugs a flash disk I saw is this company that rejected me online. I was like, okay, this is getting so personal now.
Yeah.
I need to prove these people, that I'm the guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't out even for money. So, but then this guy had told me his name is Dennis. But then I saw another Muslim guy in the corner. I was like, the name of this guy was Daniel. I was like, okay, that must be Daniel. And by the way, like to this point, Daniel and Dennis, we are like family now.
Yeah.
But, now I'm telling a backstory.
Yeah.
I was like, who's that? Like, he really rejected me. So he showed me things to do, which was like, go to make this illustration. He gave me a page to remake. And then later he called Daniel, this other guy, is like, come meet this guy. We want to test out if he can do the job. And I was looking for, okay, is this the Daniel? So he gave me his business card. Then I saw it was Daniel. I was like, got you. Okay. It's like, I'm not going to tell you like I'm the guy. I just need to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
It was really so personal. So I left, and then after I got home, tried to figure out, okay, what do I need to make out of this? The assignment looked so simple, which was copy and paste. I was just like, okay, if I copy and paste, how is this going to prove that I could do anything? So instead, I did something a little extra. This was how they had like an illustration. In this company, Green Zebra was doing like corporate training, but, designed, delivered in, manuals. I picked up a character. It was a character used by Tigo, Milcom, wherever they were working for Tigo and a few other multinational. So picked this character, and then I was like, okay, maybe the hardest thing will be to create this in different poses. So I created a page and wrote like Max. The character was called Max Mixed Poses. Then I wrote title Mixed Poses, and I done this character jumping, shouting, basic illustration. And then I came, for review. And then the guy was like, yo, what you have, and have you done the assignment? I was like, I started saying, why'd you give me? I could see, started getting frustrated. You mean? No, I was like, yeah, I didn't do exactly that, but I did something different that is extra, that I feel like is extra to prove my capabilities. I was like, okay, let me show you, okay, let me see. We are seated, of course, I was seated with Dennis. I flipped laptop when I showed him a slide with these different characters drawn. She jumped at me, was like, you're this. For him, immediately it's like, okay, done. So talk to Daniel, agree on the salary. So, and of course, started, I want this. They say, we are offering this. Middle. It was like 3 exchanges that I didn't want to make this hard.
Yeah.
Shook hand. You start Monday, you'll be working 10 days. So done that for 10 days, a month, which was like way too much, but because I felt like I needed to immerse myself, technical stuff, leave, first work, and then, so in those 10 days, I proved that I can do a whole lot more. I was given, offer, to come full time. And of course, I would say that's when I asked for an actual salary that was so big then, it was big enough.
Yeah.
So I was paid this, but after I had proved myself, and of course, but before I left the first company, I went to my employer. I was like, I wasn't even asking this second offer. I was given. I was like, okay, I was here. This is what I was asking you initially. Please give it to me. I settle. Then I wouldn't join this. So you could see it was an offer I was given, and to think about it in a week. It was also, this is first exposure of learning how hard, businesses, but still I didn't grasp it.
Yeah.
I could see my first company needed me, but still they could not keep up with the second offer I was given. But then to me, I always felt, companies have so much money, how can they afford this?
Yeah.
So they had to let me go, and I retained my salary working part-time, still evening. Whenever one come, you still keep your everything. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is good. And then I went. I asked for proper offer there. Counter proposal was given. It was given to me. Signed a contract for 6 months. 6 months. It's a good salary, great salary. My friends would be like, how come you're making that? Are these people like fools? They don't know. But of course, for me, I understood the value I was providing. And then they will tell me things like, make sure after these 6 months, you do things, so that they retain. Yeah, of course. For them, what they are thinking at 6 months, maybe I'm going to be fired or what, because I'm being given too much.
Well,
like, no, for me, I was like, how can I push my value?
Yeah.
In case what? 6 months ended, I asked for an increment. I was like, because, yeah, and, of course, increment was added. And after worked for close to a year, now I'm being paid. Life was so good in terms of money, but of course, because of so much of where I wanted to go, I only used this money to help, family. It was family. I didn't do anything for myself.
Yeah.
It's right now people would look back and be like, when these decisions you make in life. Yeah. So of course it was much of family, 100%. Nothing,
Yeah.
I didn't buy a car. If I needed to, I would have nothing, for myself.
Yeah.
And then, because I also felt like, money will keep coming. That's also another lesson for money and also wisdom, you get to learn. Let's say if, right now, if you look at, let me not regret about decisions I've made with money, but given this job, worked, and I became so close with Dennis, with Daniel, and both of them, they're different.
Yeah.
Dennis is very much a creative guy, who's fired up at ideas. Yeah, but the company wasn't doing so well, and during that time, I was applying. After I renewing into my second contract of this second month,
Yeah.
being well off, I was like, make sure I can, cover myself, going to the States and doing, an entry internship at a studio. And I remember is a company here that was going to help me to do so. But then, of course, like anyone, they're like, so you want to go to the States for the sake of States? I really like to go to the States for Hollywood because of that industry.
Yeah.
It's only what I wanted. And I remember also my employer said, why do you want to go to Hollywood so much? It's not as glamorous as you think. I can help you get exposure, go to Denmark. All this will be covered, by the company, and then you don't have to stress and come back to your job back and forth. But of course, being even super focused on what I want, I'm not the most flexible person, I would say, when it comes to what I want. And of course, sometimes I end up paying price, but I learn. I learn where I need to be a little soft.
Yeah.
But then these two guys, working with them, and another one was more, business oriented. Like for Daniel, he's a guy who's he's a guy of facts. He doesn't believe into it's 1 + 1 = 2. If it's not that, So I would initially, talk much to Dennis because he would understand me a lot. Daniel will be more like, no, no, like you cannot come and be like, I'm too ambitious, so, I'm gonna go prove the odds wrong or what. But then both of them, they became like, my close group. And when the company going, to Hollywood, it wasn't a viable option. And I remember even the dates I had said to do it, it didn't work. And also the company, Green Zebra, was not doing so well. And it was a time like, Dennis was planning to start Waka Fitness. And it was at the same time, I was like, so when he was planning Waka Fitness, of course, the job had to stop in the most abrupt manner. I'd say like, 1 month before, I started Guest Show, I was given, of course, this month notice, but then I was short 1 month. And through my job, of course, I never took any day off. All these days I was entitled to. I was like, okay, this month notice, give it to me, figure out what to do. It was like, okay, yeah. So it's like my last month at the job. I used it as a month I was entitled through my contract. So then, I'll still go, be like, yeah, we are friends. You could still come and help with some things. So within that month, I was thinking, okay, Hollywood is not going to be possible. And I remember I started doing things for visibility. I was doing some character design at that time. And then it started being long, following a tutorial. Everything became so much. I was like, Hollywood, this is not happening. So am I back in the same traumatic experience trying to convince companies, I can get a job? Yeah. And then I was like, it was at that point, at the same time, this is 2013, beginning, Century Cinema had just opened up. So I was looking for things to do. And then I saw, we'll go there, I see, films in a stereoscopic 3D, put on glasses. I was like, okay, these are cool stuff, having these things that jump off. And of course, even to that, as you could see, as a company, we try to do so much that is ahead, maybe what even the market needs. It will be good, to sort of, foreign clients, maybe to, all the markets, they find our work extremely good. But for the market we are on, we are sort of, sometimes it could be irrelevant or people cannot relate to much of what we are talking about or what we want to do. So we started off with like, okay, we can make, this stuff. And then, so that's when, the idea of the company, I was like, okay, since I could not go to Hollywood, I wanted to go to Hollywood. What they are specifically for 2 to 3 years, that's what I was thinking, maximum, and then come and start a company.
Yeah.
But then, that was not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I still, when this job sort of also stopped a month before, I knew like if at least, again, for some other family reasons, even the last month salary that I had, it was used up. So practically, I was left with this old computer that I've been using for all these years.
Yeah.
It was not functional anymore. It was like a tractor because I had done so much of, rendering. I didn't have a functional laptop. And also, my last salary was used up for something else.
Yeah.
Related. So, and now I still had to sustain myself going forward.
Yeah.
So then it was one night thinking, I was like, okay, nothing is easy. I know, of course, these are things I need to do, but so then if I'm going to suffer, let me suffer pursuing something bigger where I ultimately want to go. So I think it was one evening, I thought about to create a company. So the process of thinking of the name, that sounds professional. It was long, it was long. I couldn't come up with anything. Then it was one morning, I was like, who cares? I will give it this whatever personal brand that I already have.
Yeah.
It's already relatable, but also something that I had. The only downside of that, I knew to create a company, you're not going to create a company single-handedly.
Yeah.
You're going to need, people to work with. So if you're going to need people to work with, I sort of felt, it's not proper to have this kind of thing. But then again, I was left with no option.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I took it to RDB, registered it. It's 2013, June 11th. Guest Show was born, was given certificate of a company. Came back, remember, we are working at Police Denis, my employer.
Yeah.
Still have great relationship. Remember when I came back, to be honest, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But again, because of the experiences, I was very much humbled. I knew, it is what it is. It's not going to be easy. I cannot make so much noise. Now I have a company. Anyone can go and have that paper in a day. Remember sitting there, and then this guy, of course, Dennis, told me, congratulations, you have a company, he was sitting there with another friend. It's like, I need to take a photo of you, hold your certificate, put on a smile. That's the only photo I have, even, in create a company.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I was faking to be cool, but, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So then, but I knew one thing, I'm committed.
Yeah.
And of course, when you say you're going to do something for people, of course, who don't believe, it's going to look like, like a joke, or you're just another guy saying like you're going to do something. Yeah. But of course, they are right to a big extent. That I learned later. At least at that point, of course, I didn't want to create a scene of saying, this is such a big deal.
Yeah.
I knew, I'm persistent. I will do whatever it takes. But again, so started company.
Yeah.
Guest Show, have that paper. And of course, for a few days, I would be there helping them with some things. And of course, they will try to help me with other things.
Yeah.
First client now. Have a company. What do I do next? Of course, as Guest Show, as it is, I knew we wanted to do many things, films, commercials. Of course, there's no differentiation. Everything is there. Hollywood standard, everything, big high-end productions. So, and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out what to do. So where do I start? And of course, I had gone to the cinema to watch, I think it was Iron Man had just come out, and it was in 3D. Having that stereoscopic 3D, so I was like, okay, this is cool. That was the first thing. Went back to the office, started figuring this out. And then, but then I figured out how to create maybe stereoscopic 3D that could be taken into cinemas, as commercials. And then trying to get hold of the cinema. The manager then, man. You think, you just brought something that is, remember, and look, the cinema was running films and there was 0 commercials in between. Later, there came this one commercial from MTN. When I asked how they did it, they said, no, this is all high end. This was done by studio in South Africa. It's not something that is done in Rwanda or region. I was like, come on, like if something could be done by computer, unless if some extremely specialized tools, how do you say like, so of course, naive and maybe not too naive, but one thing I knew, if something could be done in computer, come on, like you shouldn't make excuses of not being able to figure out how that is done. Even today, that's something I cannot take for young people, doing mediocre stuff and being like, I can't figure it out. No, there's far complicated stuff. Some people made those computers. Someone made this iPad. Come on. Like, just to go in. Yeah. So not to disrespect, what we do, but I feel like, you can do a whole lot more. Yeah. So, figured this out, and then I went to sell. I remember found them, phone number of this manager. I texted, I called, no pickup, no response, no nothing. I even explained that, I can provide for you this. So in that process, at this time, there were also like, later we got another gig, which was, to create like some illustration. Now outsourced work from my previous employer, but now as a company to company. So when this job came in, it had so much of, illustration, and then later on doing some motion design. It was some work. And of course I knew this is going to take some more work.
Yeah.
And at the high end, in that I don't have to compromise
the quality.
Now the idea, of course, of, finding people, you can work with. And remember, at that time, you don't even have confidence of, you're thinking, what are you proposing to anyone? Because if I come to you, let's work together, what if you say, come also, let's work together? You felt like, you could also be like, come work for this I created, or come work for this.
Yeah.
So in those days, of course, I had a friend that was 3 years behind me in the Doki Galley. But we're in the same dormitory. It's Derek. His name is Derek Neza. So in that, I don't know, I think we of course, when I was at the uni, there was a bit of disconnect, and then I met him again. I think I met him, he was going to print some stuff in Ijiporo or something. He had like some things rolled over. I tried, some cool graphic design. And of course, in Lycée Doki Galley, or even later, no one was following each other, on any professional path. So I was like, so I had that in mind. So, I remember I went to meet him. We met, of course, I was living in Ijehojere, his parents, he was in, towards his final years at the uni, he was doing design, creative. So we had a long walk, which was, things, walk a lot, with one knows. So walking, we were walking back, told him, this way. So sold him
the vision.
The vision. Of course, he was still a student, at least at this point, all he needed to do was to do his graphic design, and then, he sleeps in peace. So, but he bought into that. But I was trying at this time to sort of sell him even far, we can get deep into this, and then, but at least at that time, like for him, he wasn't much of why he was looking for. He was much in the academics. He finished, he was retained as a university sort of assistant. Because, he's super, he's one of, the smartest people, maybe, the smartest that I know, who's extremely smart, book smart, like, degrees and stuff. He's top of his class. At the same time, he's extremely good, at his hands-on craft. Very rare. Typically, people become extremely good at this, but not the other way around. So, of course, what gravitated myself to him was much of his craft, much of his degree, to be honest. So we started working together, part-time, and also he was also teaching. So now this is, it's me and him will be, in this sort of police tennis space at my former employer's space, goofing around, listening, to hip hop, Kanye, Jay-Z. And then, also do the work. So I remember one day, so then I'd gone to the cinema, tried to sell, I couldn't get hold of the manager. Came back, sweating with my bag to the office. Daniel was my sort of deputy, because he saw, the nights I spent, trying out DCP, the format that is used in the cinema, trying out, stereoscopic stuff. Like, you're going to make a breakthrough with this. It's big. No one does it in the country, so even in the region, so you're good. But then I came very much depressed, trying for several days. He's like, did you meet them? It was like, no. I told him no. Man, I've given up. I couldn't get up. He was like, what? Pick up your bag. Let's go play Muzungu card. God damn it. Look, as unfortunate as it is, business is weird. If, you need to do what you need to do, of course, ethically, but there are things that are there, right? So this guy couldn't beat me. So I went with him immediately after I left the cinema. We went back to KCT. When we reached this food court, there was a guy who was like sort of an assistant of, the cinema manager. He was the only guy I was reaching to, but, always sending me back. I just pointed, like, that's the guy. Daniel walked over. I was like, so we are here. We want to meet cinema manager. And, we have this business proposition. This guy, before he even listened what he was saying, was like, let me call him immediately. He called the cinema manager. And of course, he was speaking Swahili. He was like, it's, these two. He said there's Bazungu, as if there are many. And I was like, come on, I felt a bit mad. And then, of course, I could hear the manager on the phone. He apologized for not being there, as if there was any prior appointment. I was like, I was texting for weeks for Matt. Now you're apologizing for not being in the office because of, Musunka did. So the guy, the manager said, like, tomorrow, 10 a.m., come. Guess what? We showed up just like that. Manager introduced us to someone that was in charge, given access, to the cinema screening equipment, about all the technicians. All he did, of course, Daniel, was to make sure this door was open when I got there. They're like, okay, we actually very much stuck. And I remember I asked them remember all these 3D whatever projection, they never existed, in Rwanda or anywhere. These are new stuff. But with a bit of knowledge you got from the internet. Also, these are not things that were much available on like typical YouTube tutorial, because we're talking about high-end cinema projection. These were things much exclusive for Hollywood studios. So, and then I asked them about the format. They misled me with something different. But then I had different information I've got on the internet. I was like, much of, as if it's something we've done elsewhere. I was like, but typically, this is the format. It's DCP. digital cinema package, and then it could be 2D packaged in that way or 3D stereoscopic. They're like, no, we don't know about that. The format they are giving me was the brand of the projection system.
Yeah.
And then I told the guys, I was like, okay, let's go do some tests, bring them, and then see. When I left, they spoke to another chain in Kenya that they were working with. They told them, actually, the format is DCP. And because I had mentioned this name to them, I couldn't sleep from there. They were like, oh, you can do this bit? No, they're running after me. I was like, it flipped. I was like, yeah, we need to do test because also. So I went to do test. It's another longer story, but we finally achieved something that could work. And they had this advertiser that was going to advertise, in the cinema, which was Tigo. They had 2 commercials, just to convert them to be able to play.
Yeah.
And then they were like, yeah, we have, Tigo, we have Coca-Cola, and we have all these clients sort of, the need to add their ads. So put me in touch with the marketing manager of Tigo. And then, of course, I remember having a phone call, be like, so you can do this? And of course, their concern was like, this cannot be done in Rwanda. So they are thinking it's sort of high-end specialized. I remember, this manager asked me on the phone call, like, and so you don't outsource it out, somewhere else. You do this in the country. So you have the equipment here. It's like, they think like, it's, yeah. And then I was like, should I say it's just a laptop? But then I said, yeah, we have the equipment. And then we went on. And then after that was agreed, had a contract, pro forma invoice. Now these are new, pro forma. So, yeah, so I went back, Dennis was there, I was like, congratulations, your first client.
Yeah.
And of course, of course, it took me some time to figure out, how to do. But then these guys paid some money that was good enough, to cover us. And then, of course, with other things, Derek was working on, we later got paid this money after some time. And I remember sending an invoice and not being even registered in VAT. So it was, crazy. Those early days mistakes.
So where are you today?
Today. So right now, we are 2 companies. One company is Case Show, the name people know that are familiar with. Second company is Case Agents, which you can tell from names are sister companies. The agents took on all the B2B aspect of things we are doing, like, TV commercials, communication needs, everything we've been doing for our clients, things that we're providing for our company to date, all those moved over into the agents. Now, the remaining name, the show, that we kept it for CGI, computer generated imagery. Those are things that ranges from, animated film production, and anything CGI, interactive things like, games, VR. Yeah. But right now, our next step, our next big thing, our next breakthrough is, as a studio, is hinged on the feature film production that we are in production right now, sort of early stage. It's a film, we've been working on from story point of view for at least, the last 6 months. It's, I would say, in sort of early stages of production right now. And it should come out next year. That's our initial, that's our timeline. Mid next year, we are putting out our first feature length animated film. And from the point of production value, this is going to be the major film from sub-Saharan Africa from the production value point of view. Yeah. So
what does that mean?
Yeah. What does that mean? So when you say production value, in terms of, cinema or anything, production value means to how high quality, the film looks, in terms of being expensive, having a lot to go into it. So that's what it means, production value. So let's say if you make a film using, your cell phone, maybe going through a forest, that's one thing. But if you add a drone, that's stepping up production value. You add helicopter or, different crazy. Yeah. But also that exists in the 3D world. So production value means in terms of the richness of the film. Yeah. I'm sure if you go to YouTube, you're going to find many low production things made by, one person or two people.
Yeah.
That are feature length. Yeah. So.
And what's the objective of making this feature film? What do you want to achieve?
So what do you want to achieve? So this film, the biggest achievement out of it is going to be that this is from a technical point of view. It's going to be done in Africa, specifically, here in Rwanda. This is something that I would say it's never been done, right? It's never been done, or at least from the scale of the project and the production value. So when you say production value, sometimes it could be subjective, but if you look on a bit of short animations we've done in the past, how they look, how they are, if you scale that up for an hour and a half, still, that will still come up as, one of the most high-end production type of, 3D film that has been done in sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, we would even say in Africa in general, but right now in Africa, for the past years, there has been only one studio that is doing feature length, and that is Triggerfish from South Africa. They've done several, shows, yeah, and So, but for this one, why this is important, it's like the core team of production. This is going to be done in Rwanda here, and the core people are these people that have been, on the Gez Show team where, early on. And of course, when I talk about this feature film, look, of course, earlier I was talking about my personal journey. But of course, what is going to sound compressed is how many people that are into this with me. Of course, I mentioned Derek, who later on had to go to continue his studies and, as a professor, but later returned to the company as a very mature person now, much aligned with, what we want to do.
Yeah.
And came, of course, there's Deo, who's Deokash cousin Mwari, our COO. I mean, he's a young guy. I mean, very young, I'd say, but he's been in the company now longest. And also there are many people I think I would name that have been, went through, our company and played tremendous, transformative, role. Of course, I would say people like, Cyber, Adam, I don't know, this Dean, Honore, Regis, I don't know.
Yeah, and how for us to understand the scale of this project, can you tell us how big it is? Let's say in terms of just rounding up, like how many people are working on it or are going to end up working on it overall. Basically, like how big is it?
Yeah, so if sort of expand on that, what this film is going to require in terms of resource, it's going to require tremendous amount of hours that translates into people. So right now, within our company, we're a team of 17 people. But we are looking at pushing this, at the peak of production, maybe it definitely has to be a minimum of 50 people, which is still going to sound like a very small number, when it comes to bigger studios where they have, hundreds, thousands, of people. But for us, looking at what we are able to do as a small group, scaling this up to 50, that is for sure going to, But of course, also when it comes to scale up, this is also going to mean there's different tiers of people and capabilities. So that's more or less, it's not like, if we're a team of 20 hardcore great people, just to get to 50, it's going to, be a process of integrating these people within this pipeline. But beyond this, whatever on-site team of people, we right now we are working with a big number of people, not only locally, but also internationally, Of course, some things are not like fully sort of cemented. Those will be communicated, when time is right. But right now, from, production point of view, we are having discussions with, bigger, of course, multinational distributors. Of course, making a film, there's to make it, market it, distribute it, has a whole big chain of things. So, and of course, what we have been focusing on is production, which is also in the context of Africa, that has not been really done much. Small boutiques, small agencies, create like a small commercial, but that's it, right? But this goal is very ambitious for bigger studios. Sometimes for them, they find it too good to be true, like sort of too ambitious or sort of unachievable. It's really hard. Also, like we are not too much naive that we don't know how this is going to be, but it's a challenge, we are open to, we're going to take on. And so in terms of numbers, end up being hundreds of people, maybe not of them doing, the major big roles like these core people, but it's going to be, many people are going to be involved, from, concept artists, where we sort of actually right now going to work with the local ecosystem. So anything we know that our core team that we can get from outside our core team, that we are putting it out, we are collaborating with other people on board. But we are sort of reserving things we know that are not available to acquire from outside or very expensive to acquire. So for example, all the technical, hardcore 3D capabilities, from modeling, rigging, lighting, all that, that we are keeping that in-house. Yeah, but, our team is going to be, And in terms of resource, of course, we cannot talk about that without talking about money. So typically, if you Google, films, 3D films, how much they do cost to make, Hollywood, if you go from Hollywood standards now, like you can go into the average of $100 to $120 million. Crazy. That's why like you would understand if, a senior, studio executive from Hollywood hears like, oh, okay, so you're talking to create a film that is in this caliber, and in their context, it costs that much. So still, there are some that are more than that, but some different studios have come up and have been able to sort of disrupt how things are made. So if you take like Pixar, which produces the most high-end, the most expensive in that realm, you have Pixar, you have DreamWorks, Sony, you name it, or those, major studios. But right below, there's this other studio, you probably know, Illumination. I think it was initially from France. It was a small company. I think later got acquired through other companies, but they've produced, Despicable Me, the Minions that everyone knows. But this company was able to actually disrupt in terms of like, the finances that goes into this and still be able to produce high-end film that is very successful at probably a half of the price what typical Hollywood studios, would do. Like, for film, at least the early films, they're producing them like, at $60 million. And then below that, you could find maybe few indie films from different continents that would cost, I don't know, 30, 40. Yeah. So, and if you go to South Africa, this biggest animation studio in Africa, the film that were produced there, of course, what it appears, these were produced on $20 million budget, which is a huge jump. And of course, typically the value that goes into these films, when you compare, for most people outside the industry, to be honest, they don't tell. They can't tell, like, oh, this is where this, maybe 98, 99 of the, the consumers, they're not going to differentiate, oh, this film that was produced from, by $20 million and another one that was produced with 120. So, of course, still, if you look into the bracket of $20 million as at least something that is known on the continent that was done, still, that is still a huge investment, for at least, a local small company to have access to, or even if we did, but it's still, we undergo different costs. For bigger studios, let's say the cost of this film that we are making, we are looking at something significantly, we mentioned that significantly lower than 20 millions, right? And for that, well, it's very small, right? And for that, even for bigger studios, it sounds too good to be true to say like you can produce this such level of quality for that small. For them, it's unbelievably impossible, in the sense like how. But then, still this figure that is so small, you go from the local context, local partner, anyone who's going to contribute to something, because also like, film funding, there's many sources of, a film is funded. So also like, for local partners or any other local contributor, for them then also what it's going to cost is not comprehensible for them. They're like, how are you even talking about that amount? How, right?
Yeah.
So right now our company exists in between people who think, okay, we are dreaming, we cannot make, something good on a certain level for this cheap. Impossible. We have those people. There's people here think who have no clue on what this costs. And they're like, dream on. What does that even mean? Right? So, and our biggest hurdle right now is to sort of create, let's say, our space where we know that we're going to provide something that is so transformational on how people think about things or do it. I mean, if you can do something extremely cheap, that's disruption, right? Yeah. Because also, and someone would ask, how are you going to be able to do it so cheap? And look, for anyone who's doing, running a business, and when you start achieving a certain level of scale in terms of people, things start getting inefficient. One way of sort of optimizing, our cost is in terms of efficiency. Because when you look at any bigger film, they have so much of wasted material because of, their hierarchy, how, things are done. And also, of course, if you look into wages, I mean, wages in LA, same as the wages, in Kigali. So we are really rallying all the help, and of course, also trying to be smart using all the advancements in technology. Technology gets better every day.
Yeah.
I'm sure this conversation would not end without talking about AI. Of course, some people will be like, AI is coming up, in the creative industry, is disrupting this, is disrupting that, yes. But still, in as far as our field, there's still so much of manual, tedious work. Yes, we will get there, replace many things. But right now, it's a great opportunity for whatever AI can contribute to in terms of this pipeline. We jump on it. We increase, our productivity. I mean, so we really want AI to keep getting better to allow us,
save a lot of cost. Yeah. Is entrepreneurship for everyone?
Repeat that again. Let me take a sip.
Is entrepreneurship for everyone?
I mean,
people see moved with the president. They see him in the US at the studios of all these big companies, and they're like, yes, I really want to be like him. I'm gonna quit my job. I really want those pictures at Africa Tech Summit as well.
So really I think everyone is entitled to do it, but can everyone do they have endurance, resilience? So, my colleagues at work, they hate, of course, this word, resilience. Because, man, like entrepreneurship, look, I don't even know how to start it, but it's not what it looks like. Yeah. It's pain, like real pain. I know. Of course, there's more pain in this world, things. I mean, people struggle with their lives and losses, this, that. Put entrepreneurship somewhere there, right? And of course, one of the most peaceful things you would have is to talk to other people that can relate to this or that are going through this, like any other kind of pain, people that are having people at their hospitals, deathbeds, they can relate to each other. So same for entrepreneurship. Yeah, it is that. And I think the fact that you're and also I don't think there's any entrepreneur maybe who goes into it knowing what it's going to take. And I mean, if you're meant to do it, I don't think there's some high level of stupidity you're going to have, because things are not going to make sense. The suffering you're going to go through, it's not justifiable. in the years, in the early years, I mean, we are 10 years down this thing, right? And it's still extremely painful, right? So do you imagine 10 years, like waking up, doing that one thing, and I mean, for those who get it, right? Yeah, but
Yeah.
look, is it for everyone? If you're stupid enough to think that you're going to win through it, and then you're going to, yes, it's for you. And if you're going to keep defending your stupidity, because, at any particular point in time, you're going to be shown there's something better you could be doing. You could be having a better living, better pay. And also, for most people think, entrepreneurship, you're going to earn more, you're going to do better, you're going to have more freedom. And the reality is exactly the opposite of that. Unless so much pain, no free time, nothing. The safest thing is for a job. The job is, for someone who can work at a company where they take care of your salary and you do particular sort of defined tasks, or if you're a good employee, be creative and, take initiatives. Also, those people are great. It's good. But for most part, it's extremely safe, for you to retain your job, work, eat, sleep. This whole idea of I want to be my own boss, I hate that. That's something I never bought into. Even day one, you thinking registering a company and having people you work with, and then you think you're their boss. Come on, who are you kidding? You're the slave, because whatever you need, your emotions, your everything comes last. If it is not done in that format, then I don't think you have a business, right? Yeah, because you need to care for the people that are contributing towards that. So this whole misconception, my boss, come on, yeah. So I'd say it's signing up for slavery. Yeah, that's what it is.
So there might be a young
aspiring creative listening to our conversation, watching our conversation here, and thinking about your story and what you've been able to achieve over the last 10 years in the field that you're in, right? And they're like, I also want to get into that space. I want to be creative. I want to do stuff. I want to change the status quo. Are there any opportunities in the field of the creative industry that you see that are still untapped, that you would love to see more people daring and taking a chance?
Yeah. So there's so many fields in the creative industry, even like what we are doing now, with this feature film. It's untapped. I mean, look at the entire continent, from bottom, South Africa, all the way to the north. So there's not really much to show in this field. And for that case, there's many opportunities. So for a young person, let's say, coming up in this, I would say creating a company, that's not like, that's not what you need to do, right? Come on. Like, first off, I'm going to tell you this. As a young person who know how to use some software, probably you're thinking, you do something, you look at it at a computer, you're like, okay, I've made this. Now I can create more of this. That's a business. Yeah. I wouldn't judge you to think like that, but that's also what I used to think. I can tell you how much I sort of underestimated business development aspects of this creative field we are in. I felt like, if we're a bunch of people and we can create like, shiny stuff, good. But look, like any other business, if you talk about, to a company, you need business skills. You need technical skills. You need a whole lot of, mix of things, that you could not define. So in terms of, what the opportunities that I do see, I think it is in many aspects. One, there are existing companies. You can sort of hone in your skill and provide value. That's the easiest way, I think, to sort of get into anything. Find an establishment. Bring whatever you have to offer. Plug it there. If it provides so much value for that thing, then you can step up, to the next thing. Maybe, figure out, I can create more departments for this and this. But don't be so ignorant to just think, what you're creating is the most valuable things. I'm guilty of thinking that, like, thinking if I can create, shiny stuff, this is where everything is hinged. But, there's this saying, is like, you don't know what you don't know. So you cannot sit and be, So ultimately, when you start doing things are going to unfold and realize, I don't think I would have even known that I didn't know this. So just know the whole entire journey is going to be like that. So, but when I look into the creative field, where do I see the opportunities? There's a whole lot. Like right now we are going through, a revolution of many things, there's AI. A little before AI, there was VR, which was, whole immersive experience where people consume imagery. And you would say, the bigger pioneer for that was, Facebook, with, them, they renaming to Meta and introducing, of course, Oculus. And, they've really, I'd say, made them extremely cheap and losing, so much money on sort of building this next computing platform. And right now, you know what? We don't know the future, right? So for most people think Facebook is being stupid, they're like, AI is not, immersion or VR. Metaverse, it's not going to sort of pick up.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you ask me my personal opinion, I do think that's the future. But the only difference comes on how much of yourself can you immerse yourself into something in terms of like dumping your resources before the market is mature, right? Yeah. If now, like, Facebook has been in there now, like, Apple with this Vision device. So the thing is there, if you look into the metaverse, I'd say right now it's the equal play field for anyone. A studio that's been producing, standard film, for cinema, Pixar, DreamWorks, right now, they have the capabilities. They could switch over to, immersive content. But the thing is, people haven't got full access to those equipment that would allow them to consume this content. So this means because of the challenge of, bigger companies getting fully into this, it's an opportunity for small ones because, you don't require much to run. I mean, you need to figure out a niche where you can begin. Yeah. And then, it's more look at the African market. Everyone knows it's the next big market.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they are afraid of dumping, putting their resources right now without having equal amount of return. Yeah. You've probably seen some articles around, bigger companies pulling out or some companies coming into these markets. Yeah. So I think that is an opportunity for individuals, companies, because we are from these markets, we are, resilient enough. We are not used to have all those, glamorous stuff. We can grow exactly at the same pace with our market. Yeah. So this is a huge opportunity for us. We have to be active, playing, from individual levels, from companies, and be strategic. Yeah. Also, we need to think not much being driven by hunger, because also, yes, sometimes you're hungry for long. I mean, being hungry, in terms of stomach, all you think it was about eating. And then remember, after, feeding your stomach, there's more. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But I wouldn't blame anyone being centered to simply thinking, earning, and eating and sleeping. But when you get a chance to travel, maybe, some places where maybe at least food, it's not like, we are starving to meet, but,
there's a big driver for
yeah. So, but if you go to these places, you see, like, sort of people are into talking about different issues, right? But in as far as Africa is concerned, we have, of course, our issues, right? So, if I speak specifically, for Rwanda, for Rwanda, it's a country, if you look, how the country has changed, right? So you go away, late 90s, which these were our, my childhood, and mid 90s, you see, the problems that were there are different from, the problems we have now, right? Yeah. So, and reason why I'm saying that, we need to think beyond. Back then, what we think about, like, you were much concerned about security, clean water. Look, food, right? Yeah, so right now, not to say like, everyone have enough of what they want,
Yeah.
but I'd say pretty much, at the bigger scale of the country, those basic things are there. Yeah.
Good.
Do people struggle to get food? Yes, they do. But yeah, so what I'm saying, after I struggle to get food, there's some things beyond food. You can really create things that could help your communities. Because also, I remember, after, having chances of, being exposed on different global issues, I remember I'd see some things that are so obvious, we could do, for ourselves, with minimal inputs of resources. But then I'm like, how comes, no other people, how comes that was never been done?
Yeah.
But then you realize, I think that's your job as an entrepreneur. I mean, you see an opportunity, you see a gap, and you see with sort of minimal input, something could be turned into something big. And of course, we all do not venture into the same things,
Yeah.
You're into education, right? Team building and, making people ready for jobs. Our part, of course, we do capacity building, definitely for our particular field, for graphics. And so that's the core of what we are creating.
Man, you've been through a very long journey, right? You've definitely learned a lot, both personally and you've definitely grown professionally as well, and all the success that you've made. Where are you? What's next for you?
What's next for me? So I would say right now, I was much sharing, of course, my personal journey, but as I had said earlier, when it becomes a company, it's not much about me. I wouldn't say much about me. It's about us. So what's next for us? In terms of like tangible ways, if I would explain, this film is such a big deal for us, and it should be a big deal for Africa as a continent. And so as we make this happen, it's going to prove so much. It's going to prove so much. There's many unknowns. Again, we are not kept using naive, because also sometimes being naive, it leads you somewhere, but it would be bad to be naive and not knowing you're naive. But I know for people who have done it in other markets, this will come off as naive, but we still need to prove that we've grown, as a company, as an institution. This is not something simply based off feelings. People right now, I'll give you an example. People come and be like, how comes there's no Rwandan cartoons? It's like, I've seen these cartoons somewhere else. How comes? Yeah. Or, if you're doing, tech that is related in the fields like of software development or apps, and you probably hear this a lot, right? People from, other markets be like, oh, I've seen this and this works in the US, so I'm bringing this idea to you. Let's implement it. how comes there's no random Uber or this app, I don't know, that Walmart uses or this. Those are things that I really don't like, Yeah, because, yes, you see them. And of course, those inputs are much welcome. That I hate it when someone sort of shovels it up to me, be like, you're not thinking. And this is someone, what do they do? Yeah, so one thing that I really, really too much appreciate, and also that I know that I do use when I'm talking even to other people. Yes, I talk too much, right? Even look at this whole episode, knows this going for half a day. But as much as I talk a lot, I also listen a lot, right? Yeah. So if we connect, I'm going to talk as much as I could, in sort of explaining things. I know people typically, you get context of things through nuances. Yeah, I know like this PowerPoint presentation, someone could do this, but there's a whole lot more to that, right? Yeah, so I would say like, I like listening a lot and sort of, giving, my input based on what I've listened. So also like what I do appreciate, if someone has full context of what I've been through or what we've been through as a group, as a company, I love that. I mean, I can listen all day. But you not having full context and giving me ideas, come on, do you even know what it takes? Yeah. And that is very common. Yeah. So, and also before I give any advice, context, even if I would see, a young person saying, I'm going to do this and that. No, I'm not going to say, you're dreaming, that won't work. No, because I also, in the past, even now, we still do things people think that don't work. But at least what I strive for is to understand where you're coming from, what gives you that belief. Of course, there are many unknowns. Always talking to someone who have done something before you, there's a whole lot you can, leapfrog, by simply listening. Yeah. So yeah, I know I have so much that I can provide in terms of that, but it's bad. It's not being valued when someone comes at you and be like, you're doing it wrong. And for this, we have suffered a lot, really, explaining that making these things are expensive. If you come to ask for 1 minute video, animated video, and then typically for someone who have no context, they'll come and be like, oh, they see whoever they've met on the team, if it's me or my other colleagues, whoever they meet directly, they assume this person is just going to go back, to work and then just make this happen. But the thing is, it's a huge collective efforts. And if something is going to take 5 people, 6 people to make 1 minute in a month, do the math, come on. And those I've seen, maybe, I don't know if that's our fault, not sort of explaining to what it takes for this to happen. But yeah, so typically if I meet you as a potential client or any of my colleagues, we meet a client, yeah, they assume, hey, yo, move, yeah, go make this, right?
Yeah.
But
it's not that easy.
No, it's not even easy, but it's a whole disconnect.
Yeah.
Someone not getting, yeah. And we get a different impression when you meet some people who are there. Now for them, they're like, oh, wow, like you're going above and beyond. How possible?
Yeah.
So it's that middle part, where we are, and as a company constantly explaining ourselves. It takes a lot to make.
Yeah.
Or to other people, we can be more efficient and make it actually happen. So, that disconnect, man.
Moved, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story and, the things you've gone through, what you've learned about building a company and, being part of the creative industry. We're very excited about the movie. We can't wait to watch, and hopefully we're going to be the first in the cinema when it launches.
Right on.
All right, man. Thank you.